Alright, so I'm going to be talking about the gender roles and identities of a bunch of characters in the non-existent night. Also, before I start, there's a worksheet in front of you guys, so just fill it out as I go. Okay, so my thesis is, Italo Calvino seeks the true identities of Bradamante, Agaloff, Horsmund, and Verdugo in the non-existent night through the use of magical realism and existentialism to explore the roles of gender. Okay, so my first part of this is Calvino explores the roles of gender through introducing Bradamante, who is the woman knight. So first we see her as different from the general stereotype of a woman, which is like fragile and staying at home and doing chores. One example of that is she had taken to the life of chivalry due to her love for all that was strict, exact, severe, confirming to moral rule, and in management of arms and horses to exact precision of movement. So this quote shows how Bradamante isn't the typical woman, as she loves chivalry and being in the Christian army. Calvino uses this quote to show that she's someone special. She's definitely not someone that's like someone else. She in fact, she also hides her identity at first from Rainbow because she's just seen as the periwinkle knight. Like, he thinks that she's a girl. I mean, she's a boy. Okay. So another example of this is when poor menfolk had to get down to work they considered womanish, such as washing clothes, mending, sweeping floors, tidying up. She having been brought up as a princess, refused to touch a thing. So this shows how she wasn't familiar with the regular duties of a woman. She wasn't used to cleaning up things after herself, and in fact, her tent was the worst in the camp because she didn't know how to clean up after herself. Okay, so Bradamante has several different identities. She is seen as narrator, the nun, and herself, the knight. One of the examples is, we nuns have few occasions to speak with soldiers, so what I don't know, I try to imagine. So in this quote, the nun, who's Bradamante, is trying to cover up her true identity. In reading this quote for the first time, you can see that, well, you could infer that the nun doesn't know very much about the soldier's life, but Bradamante was a soldier. She was one of the best knights. And then Calvino adds this quote into the novel to show who Bradamante ends up after Agaloff leaves his armor. So this happens after Agaloff leaves his armor because she's kind of in a mourning stage where she doesn't know what to do, so she becomes a nun and she leaves her past life. Okay, so this quote basically shows her identity, how she reveals that she is Sister Theodora, and it reveals the truth that she is the nun and she is Bradamante. Okay, so Bradamante falls in love with Agaloff because he is perfect. One example of this is how. Well, if a girl has had enough of every man who exists, her only remaining desire could be for a man who doesn't exist at all. So this quote shows how a girl, it seemed that a girl would obviously fall for the most perfect person in the group. It also kind of implies how society looked at girls, because they just thought that girls had high expectations and that they looked for the perfect things in life and they didn't want anything less. Another example of this is, when I came to shut myself in here, I was desperate with love for Agaloff. Now I burn the young and passionate rainbow. So this quote declares Bradamante's change of heart for Rainbow. She is eager to dive into that young love that she missed out on the first time. It kind of shows how at first people might strive for perfect things, but at the very end they just realize that they have to look for things that are perfect for them, not what society deems as perfect. Okay, the second session is Calvino explores the roles of gender through exemplifying chivalry by setting the example of Agilolf, who is the perfect knight. Agilolf shows the true meaning of chivalry through his perfection. In this quote, we see that Agilolf, while everyone's sleeping in the camp, he's just thinking about how he can be productive, and he's just constantly thinking about what he should do instead of resting like everyone else in the camp. This quote shows how Agilolf wants to be productive while everyone is resting. And it kind of shows how Agilolf, he doesn't have the same human desires as we know, as we read the book, we find out that he can't sleep, eat, or drink, which, humans need that. So, another example is, but I am a knight, and it would be discourteous to reject a formal request for help made by a female in tears. So, at this point in the book, Agilolf is giving the beggars some money to get food and stuff. And they warn him that if you see a woman crying, asking for help, don't listen to them because they're just lying. It's a hoax. But here, Agilolf, he sticks to his duties. He's insistent. He's like, well, whatever it is, I'm still going to go out there and check it out because that's my duty as a knight. I have to help whoever's in need. Calvino adds this quote to show how important chivalry is to Agilolf. Okay, so this quote is the part where Agilolf is, he leaves his armor, and now his armor is left on the ground he leaves his armor on the ground for a ring bow. This quote describes, so Calvino adds this quote to show how without his purpose, Agilolf cannot survive. So this happens right after Agilolf has that misconception that he's not needed as a knight anymore. And without his purpose, he doesn't, he shouldn't even exist because he's the perfect knight. He's not even the perfect man, he's just the perfect knight, but without his title, he's nothing. So the role of chivalry is an important factor of men in this era. Something that shows this is that the old knight remained impassive, for neither fathers nor sons are acknowledged, said after a moment of silence. Whoever enters the sacred order leaves behind all earthly relationships. So this quote is about the Knights of the Holy Grail, and it shows how important religion and chivalry is to society, not only men, but society in general. Calvino adds this quote to show how men were not home for the majority of the time, as they were part of chivalry and engaged in constant war. This is another quote about the Knights of the Holy Grail. It says, "'Tis the Grail in us, moving our swords. Love of the universe can take the form of great frenzy and urge us lovingly to pierce our enemies. Our order is invincible in war, just because we fight without making any effort or choice, but letting the sacred frenzy flow through our bodies." So this quote shows how important chivalry and protecting what they believe in, well, they as in Knights of the Holy Grail, how important those things are to them. But it can also be applied to most men in general because they are all associated with chivalry. Okay, so my last section. Calvino explores the roles of gender through the existentialism shown through the unknown identities of Horseman and Gradula. Okay, so Gradula has many identities and behaviors that set him aside as an outlier, like Bradamante, but just more extreme. So in this quote, it says, "He's just a person who exists and doesn't realize he exists." So here it shows that Gradula doesn't have an identity because he doesn't even know that he exists. And Gradula is also a foil to Agilolf, and he doesn't fit any stereotype. Another example is, I've also noticed that his name changes from season to season everywhere. So this shows how his name changes everywhere. Like from people that he meets, from the places that he goes, like his name is different everywhere. He doesn't have a set identity at all. Calvino adds in the mystery of Verdula to show that while Algoloth is not existing and yet seems like he exists, Verdula has no idea that he actually exists. He's not mentally ill, he's just forgotten his identity. Okay, so last section. Torismond's behavior towards Sofrina before and after learning the truth of his identity is influenced by genitals. So this quote says, my mother was a bold lass, but in short time she returned from those childish games. So here Torismond is describing his mother as foolish and yet in a way innocent. Calvino includes this quote to briefly show how little girls, or females in general, were treated in society. Back then, it was okay for a man to lose his virtue, per se, but for women, it was really important. It was one of the main qualities that were looked for in a woman. Okay, and then this quote, "In truth, Torismond is not my son, but my brother, or rather half-brother." Here, Sofrina is revealing the truth about her and Torismond and trying to prove that their relationship could not be considered incest and that she was a virgin before she met Torismond in the cave. Calvino uses this quote to show that women's virtues were honored and that incest was not allowed at all. That's it.